Hello, hello, people. How are you doing? So right now we're about to have sorry, our 10th meetup. This is Angga here speaking from Flutter Indonesia, and then today we're going to hold our first, probably I'd call it like international event, because we have an international speaker as well, a very special guy who's really experienced on Flutter first, and then he's going to talk about BLoC today. His name is Rao Noman from Flutter Karachi, Pakistan, and then probably today it's going to be a bit mixed with a bit mixed with Indonesian and then probably English as well, because this is our first time holding international event with English language. Hopefully this would be one of the probably we would have like a lot of international events in the future, and then what else? I think this would mean that we as a Flutter Indonesia are totally welcome with international speakers from around the world. Let's say if you want to give some talks for Indonesian Flutter developers, you can do it here. And then we do meetups occasionally. I think we haven't been holding an event in like 2 months now, since the organizer are quite busy, and then we don't have enough time to organize the event. But we'll try to hold this event regularly, probably like once a month, or probably the longest would be like once in 2 months or something. Oke, buat teman-teman yang dari Indonesia, mungkin kalau ada pertanyaan nanti, terutama di akhir sesi, dan ada susah misalnya nih ngetik atau merangkai kata-kata, merangkai pertanyaannya pakai bahasa Inggris gitu misalnya, itu boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia. Nanti bakal saya usahain translate juga ke Mas Raunya untuk ditanyain gitu. Jadi nggak usah sungkan, dan terutama sebenarnya saya pengen dengan ngundang international speaker ini, teman-teman juga bisa jadi apa ya, membiasakan diri lah untuk mendengar English dengan pronunciation-nya orang-orang luar negeri gitu, misalnya nggak orang Indonesia aja, dengan tujuan ya Indonesia bisa go international juga di masa depan gitu. Okay, that's enough for the Indonesian part. So we'll back to English. I think that's enough for me for the opening. Let me just invite our speaker because he's already here. Hello, Rao. How are you?
Hello, Inga. How are you? I'm good.
All good, all good, all good. Yeah. So this is probably your first time in front of Indonesian audience. Uh, I think our country is not really uh, like having a frequent time of inviting people from outside Indonesia. So this is very exciting for us to have you here. Thank you very much for attending this event. And then I really hope this is probably one of the first, and then there would be a lot more to come. Probably if you want to do a talk in Flutter Indonesia in the future, we'd more than welcome to have you here. And then I think we have quite some people, and then I'll inform the guys in the social media as well. Probably you can like give us a gist on what kind of topic are you wanting to bring up tonight.
Okay, so first of all, thanks to you and Flutter Indonesia for
Yeah.
giving the chance to speak in front of the Indonesian guys as an international speaker. I'm really excited to do that. So, if I talk about related to the topic, so today I'm presenting the implementation of BLoC. So basically, as per my past experience, I saw the Flutter guys and guys, they have some queries and they are doing some wrong architecture things related to the implementation of BLoC, and they have some
Yeah.
questions in their mind. So I targeted to implementation of a BLoC, basically how BLoC works, how the BLoC things are needed to
Yes.
do in the architecture. So I represent a
Mm-hmm.
very clear layer of the uh, project in which a basic API call architecture is also implemented. You can extend it. I will share
Okay.
the code base as well. So yeah,
Okay. Okay. Will there be like a live coding session or probably like you'll show your code for block or something like that?
yeah, exactly. After the
Okay.
explaining on some basic concepts related to that implemented in the code base, I will show a implemented code base of BLoC,
Yes.
and that is very clear to the things that how
Yes.
separate the layer and thing. Yep.
Okay, cool, cool. Very, very exciting. Okay, so without further ado, let me add your presentation and then you can start the presentation. Thank you, Rao. Given to you.
Welcome. Okay, guys. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Today's my topic is representing the implementation of a block pattern by a practical approach. So first, I introduce you guys about myself. My name is Rao Noman, as you saw in the speaker banner as well. I'm the Flutter community Karachi member since it's created it. I have an experience with the international talks and domestic talks as well. But I am a Flutter Gold speaker from past around 2.5 years, maybe 3. And recently I have a talk with different forum as well. And I also, my recent talk was in the Giggle, which is also related to the implementation of cloud. So yeah, mm, after that, if I'm talking about the Flutter things, I'm working the Flutter from 2017, and when Flutter was on beta, and I really enjoyed that part, and I also have a core experience with working on different cross platforms and specialized platforms like Kony and Backbase and native iOS as well. So I spent my approx journey of four years of mobile development with different tech stacks, and I found really interesting Flutter, and I'm continuing it right now. So let's move forward. So basically, let's dive into our topic related to the block pattern. If I'm talking about the thing, what is block? So everybody knows that block is a business logic component. But before I go beyond things, so what block is, why block needed? So basically, if I talking about a simple vanilla Flutter project, starter project, so you are managing the everyone is managing, developer is managing the set states thing and so on. So it is quite difficult for the developers to make the state changes and calling the set state again to refresh the which is quite costly in terms of the rendering thing. So for the management of the state management, if I go past in the different concepts of clutter state management, there's a different state management techniques available. But for the block thing, block is basically a business logic component. It's a basically the way you are separating your business logic and UI things separate. So your business logic is the totally responsible to managing the states. So on the behalf of what decision you are taking. So for going deep dive into the blog, you should probably know about the streams as well. So block are using the streams, a very simple thing in the Flutter, which are the continuous listening. We often saw the functions which are returning like async stars and some are async. So when we are talking about the async stars, so basically they are returning the streams thing. And whenever we are talking about in the block to give the UI to the state and listen it continuously whenever the state change, UI can do something. So we are using the stream in that approach. So let's move. So basically, if I divide the block and architecture, so we are using the four layers basically. So if the first layer is UI, so basically UI layer is very simple thing. You have your widgets, all the widgets, and the user interact with the things are your UI. The for example, if you have a button on the screen, these all things are the your UI logics. So basically, if I the block business logic component, it is basically the middleware, and we have some two special things, repository and data source. So basically, Repository is basically the taking the data respectively, which repository DI. If you are talking about to implement the dependency injection, so your repository is responsible for the things who manage which things to be rendered from the data source and taking data from the data source and give it to the block for the further deliver it to the UI. So basically, UI layer your hold all the components that are visible for the user and ticket. If I'm talking about the UI part, and I take the example, for example, I have a login screen. So basically, it has email and password thing and a button to do the login. So so basically what I do there, if I start talking about the widgets, so all the widgets, the screen that are shown to the user, it's your UI layer. So we are as a good architecture, if I implement it, if I'm talking about other than BLoC as well, like MVC and Boolean, so we are making our UI logic separate. Our UI logic is not the one who take the decisions on the behalf of anything. So we are taking our all UI widgets thing on the UI layer, and then it's come to the other layer, that is the block. So when it's come to the block, we are holding the components that are visibly integrated, and all the things that are your components are used to be rendered. For example, on the login screen, if you want to tap and you want to send data to the to the backend, so it could be the part. So let me take a 5 minute break. It's a fair time for myself.
Teman-teman break dulu ya sebentar 5 menit. Lagi ada azan di Pakistan di Karachi. Oke. Ntar kita mulai lagi.
Yeah. Hello. So basically, if we are talking about the repository pattern, so repository thing layer. So basically, it is nothing like a multiple. We have multiple data source. If I'm talking about a real life example, I have an HTTP call architecture, and there are some things that needs a token, and some services are does not take token. It's a very general example. We can handle it from the single repo as well, but if I write an architecture for the ought to organize, two tokens. So basically, I write the two wrappers. So for the login thing and not login APIs that are not needed token, so I use the repository thing. So basically, we can implement the multiple repository very easily in the block pattern. So this layers come from after the block. So basically, when first is your UI layer, and then it's your block layer, and then your repository thing. So basically, if it's come to the data source thing, data source is the very simply uh, architecture. And if we are going through this architecture, that are talking about that how uh, our data source work, how data and models are going to be work. If we are need to store the data in the shared preferences in database and network calls, we need to implement all this logic in our data source. And none of our data are represent on any other layer. If we are going that doesn't going to be separate these things, we are violated the void block rule. So basically, as per division of the things, like layers, the data source is basically responsible for your data, either from the database itself, it's your internal database something, and like shared preferences thing. We will saw that the whole example of these things in the code right after this thing. So basically, when it's come to the block, how we must talk about the layers, how events, states work, and so on. So if I'm talking about the layers are very clear that we have UI has a block thing, and block itself has a repository and data. So it's up to you how to divide the things. But again, the challenge comes that the main concept related is that how block work in the events and state. So basically, events are very simple thing. If I go back into the example that I provided you the login thing. For example, when you land on a login screen, you have a email, password, and a login button, for example. So what are the event, what are the state? So basically, if I talk this text, that event are passed from the UI, which contain the information to the action. For example, when you enter the email and tap on the login, so the code base, your UI will give an event to the block. So basically, for example, login event. So basically, the block will go through into their respective code, and go into the code block where I handle the login event. So in the login event, I will use the multiple state. For example, when there's a tab, there's a loading state. On the loading state, at that time, I will fire to the UI and show a progress bar and loading. And after that, user can go to the API call, and there might be multiple state. Either the network user is authenticated. If user is authenticated, I will return the success state, or maybe any other function to save the data and so on, and call the next API. And if there is a network error, I need to handle the error states basically. So it's depend upon me that I will use a single error state or maybe use the multiple error state. But whenever a state gonna fire, I handle it on the UI and make the things. So when the login call goes on, the block passes it to the provider thing, to go into the which repository and talk to the any of the thing. Like for example, if you have user login first time, it has an email partner password from the API, and the other time you want to make it the to store inside the mobile. So he don't want to do the login again and again. So at that moment, you can do the another event and check if there's values are exist in the on the calling of the event. You can do that step. So basically, events are the and passed from the UIs, and states are the thing that on the behalf of which UI changes its interactions. So it's very simple concept in the block. So this is the same counter example that if you start with a counter example, that when you press a button on the plus, for example, I have a plus button and minus button on the UI. On the plus button, the counter goes one, increase, and go for minus. So I have a two events, one is for the addition and one for the subtraction. So basically, when the addition increment event called, it will trigger the block and increase the count to one, and I will handle these all things of increasing and decreasing thing into the block. So basically, it's very simple thing to handle the states. So this is the a very known diagram of the block. So basically, how it's work. So if I'm talking about the presentation layer, the UI layer, and how states and events are work. So basically, whenever I event fire, it will go straightly into the block, and block has a special function called map event to state. I will explain further. So basically, map event to state take the event and give it under state, basically on the behalf of converting, listening the UI by the stream. So basically, the block comes in and the events, for example, there's a login event call and the block goes to the data source. Data source itself have the some networking calls and so on things. So they do the asynchronous request, and at that moment we need to show user something because the request maybe take more time, the server is slow. There's a lot of things to be do happen. So at that moment, the state loading is stratified to the UI. UI will doing its own work, and at the back end, that block is going to be fetched, communicating with the server and giving the response. So whenever I get a response and I need to communicate it to the presentation layer, means UI layer, I need to call the state. So whenever I need to communicate presentation UI layer to the block, I need to call event, and block to present UI layer, I need to call the state. It's a simple concept. So what is the stream? Basically, a stream is very a sequence of events are following. Maybe we can using either on the notify of the something to the user. They have the continuous listening. We have streams of different type like broadcast streams, and you can merge a different stream as well. But for continuously giving providing the events to the UI, you can basically use that stream thing. So this is basically inside the block I talk about the map event to state thing. So how basically the state basically your event and state are going to be done. So basically we have a block is like basically comes in a event and go on to the stream, like continuous data flowing in this whole block. So basically whenever a business logic control, there's a stream controller that will listen the stream and sync basically the events you are coming in, and the stream controller giving the stream to the UI on the behalf of which we can rendering out the data to the uh, okay. So we have some special things like in Flutter we have like stream builders and different things. So like in the block when we implementing the block, so listen the states, like how to render widgets at that moment, when which is the best place to navigation, where to do the progress parsing. So we have some special widgets for the block, like block builder is basically a builder function. It requires a wizard widget in the response. So for example, I have three states. One is for the login state, and one is the loading state, and one is the error state. So at these three states, I need to notify the user different widget. For example, for loading, I need to show the progress bar, and for simple success screen, I need to show the user the success widget, some animation like thing, and for the error state I need to show user the error message. So handling it like that, I will use the states. Basically for the success screen, I need to use that for the success state. If state is that, go render that thing. If state is that, go render that thing. So block builder basically used to change the UI myself. I will show you the code a little. So it's work like that. There's a block builder. It's a bit similar like stream builder. It has a block. So basically block is the type of your block, and it always listens the state. So basically this return part will return you the block on the behalf of states. So when you have state like multiple, you can use the if checks, and the easiest way to use the if checks and return the widgets for the block. So block provider. So basically, a block provider is basically if you're thinking about an example like dependency injections instance in the block. So you can provide the multiple widgets in the subtrees. Sometimes that if you are going to render out, for example, on the state different widgets, so you go to the nested thing and so on. So for the block provider thing, basically it return this the pure function thing, taking state and return a new event to at every moment. So this is be like the same. It could be take the multiple. For example, each block. For example, I have a UI, and in UI, I need to listen multiple blocks. Like in a single widget, there are multiple widgets, and each widgets, four widgets have four providers to the listen, block providers to listen, blocks to listen basically. So for the single, this code widget would like create build, and I will tell the widget that which block you need to listen, and the listening mean is that on behalf of which block you need to render the change your UI states. So there should be the multiple provider because the nested one is not good approach. So we use the multiple provider, and the multiple provider you see that it will take the provider of array, and there are multiple containers to the return. So yes, for the rendering of widget, it could be very easy thing, but sometimes we have a scenario like we need to show some snack bars, some navigation to do on the states, and something. So basically for that purpose we are recommending to use the widget listeners. So the block listener is basically the states, it is also listening the states basically. So whenever the functionality occur, for example there's an error occur and I need to show a snack bar, any notification there, so it's not a type of a widget. So I will use that functionality to use the block listener and handle the state if that state occur. So basically for the navigation thing, block listener is very good. To do the block builder navigation, the block builder is not recommended approach. So block listener is also work like that when you been it has the same scenario like block listen. You listen the block, you need to listen the state, and you can also use the lazy thing as well in this thing. But for the listener, you have a context and the state. The state is basically the UI state, and after that you need to render. So block also use the multiple repositories like as I told you in the previously that if we have multiple UI multiple repository to communicate like login and not login repository for example, or maybe the other thing some different push mechanism server to fire. So basically you can simply wrap your app thing into the multiple repos. So it could be the easy for you to use which repo at runtime and decide in your code. So you can use the multiple repository very easily in the block thing. The its code is a bit the same, like you can use the for example the child will to tell the repositories the same as the block provider, but the repository provider is some different thing. You can call it like context.read as well, and without extension if you don't want to call it, so you can use the whole repository provider of to initializing the whole thing. Same like multiple block provider, you can also use this multiple repository pattern provider. So basically if you are a repository, the previous one is for the single one. If you have multiple, you don't go with the nested approach, so you can use to improve the readability and eliminates the multiple repositories to merge and conflicts and not easy to understand if you reading the code. So we can use for multiple repository, we are using multiple repository providers patterns. It could be the same like the provider can take the multiple repository things and then move then it has used respectively the repository where I needed. Okay, so let's dive into the code. A simple architecture of implementing block that I have written. I will show you that thing, and let me give me a moment. So I will show this. So yes. So basically, let me explain first. So basically, yeah. So yeah, let's go sure. Okay. So basically, this is a simple Flutter project. Let me dive you to the folder hierarchy, how I dividing the things. So after that, it would be the easily for the you to understand how these layers are going to be divided. So first of all, this simple thing like this division of Flutter simple project. Everybody is familiar with this thing. First, I need to go into this lib folder and tell you how this folder is actually divided. So basically, if I go to that, remember that diagram that I show you guys, that it has a UI, that it's a block pattern, it is a repository, and data source. The extra thing is model. Basically, model is the type of your data structures, the JSON convention. So I have a UI layer which talks to the block. Block will call to the data source that could be the provider and the repository. So when you go to the main.app, it's very simple that you can run a main app and it will look take the multi-block providers. I will telling him that which block to listen. For example, I have multiple blocks here. Like right now, my block name is to do block. If I am telling at the type of the app initialization that you can listen this block. For example, I have multiple blocks. I will explain it here. So my this app could be wrap inside that. So if I go towards get block, so basically it's a very simple thing. Let's go first to the UI, how it's working. Then I come towards this block part. So basically from the main.app part, you can go to the to-do list. So basically, it is a showing a list of JSON to-dos things in the way how block works. So basically, this is a stateful which you don't need to much dive into that thing. I have initializing to do block. I write the code is very simple to just understand. So to do, I'm going to be initialize the way that I am telling to, and I'm in the init part. I'm calling an event. I can call it on a button as well, but for the init, I am calling this because this is the event that whenever this widget gonna initialize, this event gonna fire. So this is a simple scaffold. You have an app bar. In app bar, I will write something like this thing. I think this is not much need to explain. The main part is to be the listener thing. So basically, I'm doing the data part here just because of that you guys understand the part. So basically, if I close this thing, and I close this thing, and I close this thing as well. Okay. So you get notice that I have a block listener in which I am listening the states. Like for example, if my state is success state, I need to do something here. For example, I can do the navigation here. For that mean I am rendering the data from the state. I'm setting that data into the state, and whenever the state change, the data given to the widget. And I have a block builder as well. And the block builder basically have a block and state. It will always take the block. The block is that I initialized here. Okay, so whenever the state is fetch loading state, I will go through that thing as well, and your UI gonna be rendered with that thing. If the state is other than that, I'm going to do that. So let's go first after that into the block part. So basically, what is the block? It's very simple thing that block always whenever you're creating a block, you will extend it to the block, and your block will take two things: which event to listen and which states to file. The thing I explained previously. So basically, I have multiple events explained there, and there should be the states, multiple states in a single block. So if I go there, I use the simple abstract class. So basically, if I go there, I have an event. So basically, this is a single event we are using. If I have a multiple event, for example, I need to use the login event. So it's simple. I will define it here, but it need to be extend this to do event because this is the type which is using in a block part. Okay. So if you are thinking go towards the block, it will listen to do event and there to those. So whenever the multiple events I'm going to explain it is automatically listened by this block. Okay, if I go towards inside this two states, so basically I'm explaining the states here. This is like the same architecture. I'm explaining an abstract class, and this abstract class extends all type of states, so it's easy for my block to listen to things. So every block you should need to give is the initial state. So I give the initial state, explain here fetch to be list. Inside the state, I can store the data. I can set the data here. So basically, if there's a data, I will show the data here. If there's a message, I will show the message here. And so when I come into the point, so basically this is the guy who's the responsible the diagram that I shown in the output block. block. So this map event to state. So basically, if you clearly check this function. So this map event to state is fired whenever the block gonna be initialized and any event call. So it takes an event. So as I show you that we are from the UI throwing the event to the to-do fetch in the inner state. So if you go inside the block, it will show me that to-do fetch it. So when this event call, this whole block gonna be rendered. We will write the code much cleaner here to define the different functions, but we don't have multiple chunk of code, so I take it as a minimal code to understand everybody. Okay, so whenever the event call, I will fetch the loading state. This async star basically returning the streams of to do state, the to state, this state, and UI will listen the state. So basically, the result, and I write a provider. So basically, the provider thing, I will explain it. So whenever this loading state gonna be rendered, the UI show the loader thing, and the background they are doing this get list bar. So basically, I'm defining a provider. So this provider is nothing. This need to work that fetching the data from the API and given to the block. That's it. So for doing that thing, I explain some architecture here. So I do the REST API things by calling the DO library. I will explain it further. So basically, it's a simple library and very easy to communicate and pass in the response thing as compared to the HTTP. So yeah, so this is related to the to-do REST APIs, and the provider will take an API and it will provide it. So basically, if I go inside that thing, so this is a part that I am explaining about the DO part. I will explain the DO library further, and I will show you the packages which I am using as well. So if I go inside to the package, so I think this is not much needed for you. This is the BLoC package that need to know. So I use the retrofit library. The retrofit library inside use the DO thing and the JSON serializing for the modifiers. So these things are not related to the BLoC thing. But you can use this is the BLoC part. So these are I'm using to just do the quick rendering of passing of my response and communicating to the API. I find it very similar to use that and easy as well. So when you go inside that, this provider function is very easy. This is the type of the provider REST API. If you go inside, I will explain a function there. So the advantage of using the retrofit is very simple. You can just give the URL, and you need to provide which type of call you have, and just call it and return, and just provide into your data how to be parsing. So nothing I need to do. The itself library can do a lot of things. So when I go inside that thing. You see that after running the build server command, it will create this whole code itself, and it will give me this type of. So this is not the written code by me. So whenever I call this thing inside the block, it will return me the result plug state, and I throw the success state to the user. And when I go to the success state to the user, my UI will enter. Look, the success thing, I will change this thing. The state gonna be render the change, and the whole. So there is nothing is there like the handling of the state, like set the state thing and so on. So if I go inside the block, yeah, this slide is not much needed, but we make it as a practice. So yes. So I will further explain this profit library. You can use it. Okay. So let's run that code and let's saw what happened there. It's basically a simple JSON placeholder API. We're getting the data from this. Okay. So yeah, at the time it's running, we can use. Sometime we have a scenario like our state's gonna be same in the on every time we need to render the state. Basically, we need to compare the state, current state to the previous state to change the state. So there's a very good package that we are using to object comparison, and we use in the BLoC as well, the equitable thing. We can more enhance the things like you can see that this is a very little. I think when your code gonna be very big. For example, if I go in the whole stuff with the set state and I have hundred of features in the code, that it could be very difficult for me to handle. So this block gonna be separate by the things. But the disadvantage is there is that I need to writing out this code again and again, again and again. So basically for that purpose, we are using, we have a different option like for Qubit, and we are making some commands to give the block name, and it will respectively create the states and things. So this boilerplate code effort could be reduced by yourself if you use multiple techniques like Qubit and thing. So I'm not in put much of that, but I will share the branch as well in which that things are already implemented. So yeah, let me run the code. So I basically use the equitable when I'm using the block, so it helps a lot. There's are multiple situation comes in when you need to handling the thing like changing the event side the block. So showing the progress of different things. So these are things are very easily handled in the block as compared to the different the simple state management thing. And the block is a recommended approach and now as well. I also worked on the GetX. I found GetX as well very good in terms to the block because itself the navigation support of GetX is very good as compared to block. You see that there is no navigation. You need to render it. So basically, what happened there when I run this application, so this uh, init state call and init state throw the event. If I put the debugger as well first here, then go inside here, here, and here, and if I show you the further thing, the typical works. So, so we start the widget. Look, and inside it will go to the to do fetch event. When it go there, it will yield the fetch loading state. It will go inside to the to do fetch list, go to the provider to call the API. The state is loading there. The loader is going to be render on the UI, and basically the showing this thing from the debugger is to understand. So once the data comes in, it will return to the again back and look. Comes in this yield success state call. I already did not put the debugger here, so it's not stop here, and the listeners come in. For example, if I remove that thing and then start, it will come here, 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 so there, here. Okay, this fetch load state call from this part, and you can throw the state here, put the data. This is right now the state. I going towards the state space. So yeah, this is the thing. There's a small thing that I need to add here. I will share the code repo link to you guys, and it's a little task as well. Whoever listening to this thing, so go and just tap on it here. You will fetch the IDE from here and call the to do detail event, and use the same block architecture and make it more simpler as much as you can, and fetch the data. So once you do that thing, you will clearly know the how this division of things goes on, and very clear architecture of block, and even each piece of the architecture, as I told, you can understand the concept very well. So one thing, yeah, this is almost done from my side thing. Nothing else I need to show here. If you go towards the profit library, I will show you the documentation of this. Basically, it's a very good for the networking thing. I'm using it that's why I'm explaining this thing to you. So basically, it will support all type of data. Like you can use a JSON serializer thing and just tell the URL part and just write this thing, and the whole API and passing the response gonna be done by this. And one thing, uh, yeah. So this is the thing. Over to Enga for that.
Okay, thank you so much, Rao, for the really inspiring and then I think eye-opening session. The explanation was really, really clear about BLoC, and then I think a lot of, especially newbie developer that just learned Flutter are a bit confused about BLoC and then have some questions and need some guidance. So I think it's really, really helpful for them. By the way, Rao, can you give the link to the repository that you just shown to us?
Yeah, yeah. I will
So that,
share the
yeah,
screen.
okay. Please do share in the comment section so they can people can see it directly from YouTube. Okay, first question from Mas Ade Ridwan. By the way, people, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. Teman-teman, kalau ada pertanyaan tentang blog atau tentang Flutter secara umum, boleh ditanyain di kolom komentar di bawah. Nanti kalau pertanyaannya bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris, boleh dua-duanya. Kalau bahasa Indonesia nanti bakal saya translatein ya. Okay, the first question from
Link
Mas.
here.
Okay, okay, we'll share in the comment section. First question from Mas Ade Ridwan. The question is, so people are getting a bit confused about immutable annotation. Is it the same like const variable in Dart?
You are going to be break. Can you repeat it?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so people are getting confused about immutable annotation. We saw that you have written some immutable annotation on your GitHub repository, and then people are wondering if it's the same as const variable in Flutter or not.
Yeah. So basically, if I talk about the immutables data in the Flutter, you can modify it in your own choices. Uh, so if I compare it to the constants like in Flutter, it is bit similar but has some more things. You can compare it easily with uh, like different classes mean and collection of object and some numerous method that you have in the complex data structure. So for the constant, it's bit different, not so basically recommending the for the classes to use the immutable to user interaction side.
Okay, okay, thank you, Rao, for the answer. So I hope Mas Ade Ridwan, it has answered your question. Next question from Mas Aldi Krisandi. So the question is, why Flutter BLoC library have built when and listen when? Why not filter it on block layer so we can check with unit test on block layer? So basically, I think the question is, I'm not really familiar with build when and listen when, so probably it's on the like widget side. So the question
Yeah.
is, why not filter it on the block layer?
Yeah, I think they're asking this question why the filter block has build when and listen when. Why not? So we can check with the unit test on the block. So basically, it's depend upon what you need to be test. As I explained in the blog provider slide, I will show you this thing that when to render the listen and what is the utilization of that thing. So, if you are going to test the unit of a block, for example, you need to just test in the thing. Uh, it's very easy in the block because each unit of code is very separate. So, if you're talking about build when and listen when, I'm not getting this part of the question clearly. If you are talking about this thing, that when to use the build when and listen when, so the answer is very it's simple. Like when you have different states and you need to listen to some state. Sometimes the listener throwing states are throwing from the block and you does not need to be rendering. You does not need to be listening. So these things are using there. But for the perspective of unit testing, this layer is very clear. When you're testing the widgets, when you're testing the blog, then you are using this thing that you can build your widget, you can listen your widget when you need.
Okay, okay, thank you, Rao. Uh, Guys, if you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment section. Because there's no question left, I will ask a question that we have prepared. First is, oh, this is probably a question as well from one of our audience. So he's a bit confused on how to navigate between pages in BLoC. Uh, from what he said that he tried to navigate between pages outside the BLoC listener. Yeah, outside the BLoC listener, not the BLoC listener, sorry, the BLoC builder. Then it gives an error, and then it won't navigate at all. So how to do it? How to do this properly? Navigate,
So
yeah, between pages.
he or she may be navigating outside the block builder,
Yeah,
not in the
outside the
block
BLoC
builder as
builder.
well.
Yes, yes.
So the issue is related to the context thing. But if you are managing the navigation from the routing thing, there's a lot of scenarios there. I think I need to take a look of your code, why it's going to be break, why it's going to be giving you the hurdles. But you can navigate from outside the block builder as well in the navigation. It's not a tricky part. I think the navigation is it's different from the block thing. But you can, if you are managing it inside the state, as I told, you can go into the listener. But for example, your block builder widget has a binding with a function like event bubbling and a callback. So it could be easily be navigate outside the block builder. I think you maybe have issues with the parent provided type thing like context. Yeah, common issue with block if you are not wrapping your whole application inside the block thing, as I showed into the material lab example.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Rao. Next question. Have you ever tried unit testing your code in BLoC? And is there any challenges that you face while developing the unit test?
Uh, yeah, as compared to the unit testing thing, I do it for the personal research in some big code. Yeah, but we definitely write the unit testing the block. There are challenges there, but I remember I forgot one thing I named that I am using to do the block testing in the block. So yeah, I done it previously, but the challenges are related to the, I think, the rendering of the widgets of on the behalf of the states. This thing, it's little complicated, but it could be handled. We can use the block testing. There's our packages available that we can use the block test. So um, Flutter community is doing very expandedly, and you can use the Flutter block testing, mass testing. There are things also you can do it.
Okay, okay. By the way, okay. By the way, yeah. Some audience are asking, the bahasa version of your answer. So let me translate. Ya, jadi Mas, masalah navigasi yang tadi Itu bisa macam-macam sebenarnya. Menurut Mas Rao, masalahnya paling mungkin adalah konteks yang dipakai, konteks yang salah misalnya. Jadi misalnya harusnya konteks yang di block builder itu konteks yang benar, tapi kalau Mas pakainya di luar block builder itu konteks yang salah. Jadi kalau pakai konteks yang salah dia nggak bakal bisa navigasi satu page ke page yang lain. Jadi gitu sih translate dari jawabannya. Oke, moving on. Next question is, have you ever combined BLoC approach with other approach? For example, provider or probably any approach for state management, like combining both of them.
You can do it, but I didn't find any limitation in the block uh, to combine two things. It is like making the things more complicated at your end. Uh, as I explained that GetX, for example, if I'm talking about the GetX, it has a good navigation support as well in the block. But I don't think so. There is a reason to change. Provider works very different. Block has different architecture. So they both are good for any type of architecture, but it's depend upon how you write the code. If you are don't familiar with any of the architecture pattern clearly, and you are going to be implement, it's definitely crashes you at any moment. But the combination thing, it could be combined, but you need to handle the things. But I don't think so. There must be any need there to combine blog, get X provider in the same way. So I
Okay.
don't get any need.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the answer. Moving on to the next question. So this is also frequently asked by the audience, how to use, let's say based on the example code from your GitHub, how to use the repository for offline sources, for example, caching. Let's say we want to catch the API results, let's say in SQL, or probably just plain JSON, let's say. How to do that in
Yeah,
your
it's
code
it's,
example?
it's for example, I think the repository part that I showed, I am using it for to the network library that have no token. For example, I need to save the data from API to the database SQLite. So
Yeah.
I write the repo for that because at the some instance block need to call with the different repo. So in the different repo, I will use the whole wrapper, whatever the logic that will be there. It's depend about the data that I'm getting from the API. But for the caching purpose, you can do that. But I often saw that people are not writing the cache linking with the proper architecture. But if you are implemented different repos like for storing the data there, you can do it with the same as well, but it may complications. So if you do use the multiple repository, you can use for the SQLite. For the same repo, you can use for the caching thing, reading the data from there. So it could be very easy. So for the repository, if you have DI dependency injection, at some moment your app could talk to the Firebase. At some moment you need to talk to the your own backend. Some moment you need to talk with any payment gateway. So they have their own protocols. So for writing the protocol in the same approach would be a good approach. You can use the different approaches during
Okay.
that because your data source, the model part, don't know about the calling architecture that I
Yeah.
explained.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the next question, we have two more. The first one would be how to communicate between one block to another. Let's say we have like probably like an authentication block, let's say, and then after that we have something like cart block, let's say. So how to communicate between one and another?
Okay, so if I'm talking about different block things, I should like tell the one thing that if you have different rendering, like for example, you can call it through the throwing the event from the initialized block. It's depend upon you how to initialize. For example, I have two block. I have a to do block that I showed, and from the to do block, I have a to do detail block. Okay, so once the to do block gonna be render, I will fetch the first one and its passes ID to the to do block. So it could be the easy. I will have two different blocks and wrap my widget into the multiple block provider that I explained. But for calling the event, you can do that thing. But from block to block communication, I think you need to pass the instance of that block event. So and listen the states of both the block on the UI. So it is the way you can do. But probably this thing gonna be tricky in terms of the passing the context thing between the blocks. Your widget tree gonna be at the time of refresh may give you some hurdles, but it is possible to do in between the events. I can do that in past, and I'm telling you this thing from experience.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Okay, last question from us would be, does all the data inside the app, whatever the data it is, must go through the block, or only the global data, or like the data that travels between pages? Let's say, like you just explained, from to do list page and then to do detail list page, or such thing. Do we have to like include all the data inside block?
So, if I talk about the question, it is all the data inside the block. So, where to go from the between the pages?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, depends upon the navigation how you managed. If you are listing the data from the state and you are navigating from the listener, it's very easy to pass data from between the blocks. And I personally recommend, and the blog also recommend to read the UI data from the states. So basically, you don't need to call the API again and again. So if I talk about the stores concept that we can also implement in the blog as well. So we can whenever there, for example, I can post a to do and I do the network call again. It's a bad approach for the data. But for that thing, I think calling the data from the certain state thing is really a very little approachable. You can pass from the listener to the different block. So it could be read from the state, pass data from the different state.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the answer. Yeah, it's clear enough for me. Okay. So I think there's no more question from the audience. Probably you can follow Rao in his Twitter. We'll mention him in the Flutter Indonesia Twitter after this Flutter Indonesia account. And then you probably can ask one thing or two if you have any questions regarding blog or probably Flutter in general. And then I think that should be all. Thank you so much, Rao, for your time in here.
Yeah,
Hopefully, we can do an event like this in the future.
sure.
We really appreciate your time explaining blog to us, and I think this is really really helpful, especially for the newbies to Flutter, and then juniors who doesn't get the how block works, or probably like how state management in general works as well. So this is really really helpful. Thank you once again.
I'm
Okay.
really
Yeah.
encourage the Flutter Indonesia to do that
Yeah.
thing for the posters in their country. And again, thanks to you to
Yes.
providing me the opportunity to speak in front of the pupils and I share my knowledge.
Yes.
Inshallah, yeah, in future we will do more enhanced topics that people can understand and people want to
Yes.
because I saw there are newbies have some different problems.
Yes. Okay, that should be all for today. Probably last word for me would be terima kasih, Rao. That would be thank you in Indonesian. We really really appreciate your time in here. Okay,
Thank you.
removing you from the stream. Thank you, Rao. Bye.
Thank you.
Oke, teman-teman, segitu aja dari kami, tim Flutter Indonesia. Terima kasih banyak yang udah hadir di malam hari ini untuk belajar BLoC. Kalau ada pertanyaan tentang BLoC atau tentang Flutter, bisa ditanyain ke grup Flutter Indonesia. Ada di Telegram, udah taruh di komen di YouTube-nya. Terus kita ada Twitter, ada grup meetup.com. Hopefully tiap bulan sih bakal tetap ada meetup lainnya ya, yang ngebahas nanti materi-materi lain atau gimana. Jadi pantengin terus sosial media dan meetup.com-nya Flutter Indonesia. Dan sampai ketemu di meetup selanjutnya. Terima kasih, bye-bye. Have a nice day.